Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This video is about my experiences with healthcare in Namibia, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, number one, I just want to say that there are basically two types of hospitals or doctors or health clinics that you can go to. They're either private ones or government, or they call them government, but it's like a public facility or a state facility. So those are the two options, private or government hospitals. Private, of course, you're going to pay more money. The quality is generally way better at private hospitals in Namibia, at private doctors' offices, than they are at the public government hospitals or government, healthcare clinics. So it's a matter of how much money you have to pay, basically. And I would definitely, if you're coming to a country, no matter where you are in the world, obviously healthcare is really important. And I would highly recommend private facilities and private doctors. You can always go on the U.S. Embassy's website of a country, and they generally have a list of doctors, lawyers, cardiologists, ophthalmologists, gynecologists, things like lawyers, just therapists, things like that, psychologists, a list that they unofficially recommend. They say they're not recommending or they're not in the place to recommend, but basically that's kind of like a list of like the better private doctors or private lawyers in that country. So always check out the U.S. Embassy's website of the country that you are planning to, or that you're planning to visit, or that you're in. Another thing that you can always do is ask an American that you know, or just someone that has the same ideals of healthcare standards to you. Ask them for their advice, or someone that they can refer you to, just so that you can, a referral is always a good idea. My first experience with the healthcare system here was back in 2011. When I was a teacher here at a high school in the rural northern part of the country, and I was helping with an after-school event in the evening. It was like sort of a talent show, a talent/fashion show for these high school students at the school. And myself and another teacher were tasked with the responsibility of taking the tickets from the students and, letting them come into the auditorium that the event was going to be in. Unfortunately, we didn't really coordinate the intake process very well. And so there was this massive amount of students that were outside of the door to this auditorium trying to get in. They're all excited, all hyped, and they're just trying to get in. They're pushing each other. It was actually really dangerous for them, like stampede, trample dangerous, but they're pushing each other. And so the teacher that I was with, he decides to pick up this big metal bench that probably weighed about 50 pounds. It was just solid metal, and put it in front of the students that are pushing in to keep them from getting in, because it was just becoming really chaotic. And unfortunately, they kept pushing and then pushed this metal bench to the point where it slammed down, like not like tiptoe, but like that, like slammed down onto my foot with just this crazy impact, my left foot. And you can see that picture here. Pretty gruesome, I know. It basically, my entire big toenail popped off. There was blood everywhere. It was a disaster. And I started crying immediately. People were just shocked. I was shocked. I was like, is this an omen? Am I not supposed to be in Namibia? I've only been here for 3 months and this is already happening. I can't believe, what is going on? So yeah, I cried in front of the students, whatever. I got made fun of for that afterwards, but look, when the tears come, they come. So I was taken to a hospital that was a government hospital, a public hospital nearby. It was about maybe 10 minutes, not even 10 minutes, a 5-minute drive away from the school. And I get to the hospital and I'm still crying and freaked out because it was a lot of blood. And I'm in another country and I couldn't believe I'm already injured. And so I'm crying, and one of the first things the nurses says to me with this really cold, serious face is, "What are you crying for?" And I'm like, "Because it hurts." I'm like, "What do you mean, what am I crying for? How are you gonna ask me? Obviously I'm crying because it hurts." But the culture here is a bit different, I've noticed. People, I would say, don't cry as easily. It's just different in that respect. Especially for an injury, people are very strong, number one, but they just, yeah, they don't cry like as easily. I've noticed that. So anyway, I was already turned off just by the fact that this nurse and all the nurses seemed a bit like cold and unfriendly to me and my plight, you know. So I was just like, wow, like, I can't believe she just asked me that. Like, what is going on? Now, this hospital, the standard was also really shocking to me as an American. Very old facility, you know, just seemingly, I don't know, like it didn't have enough resources. The cleanliness was definitely also an issue. Just little things that you notice that you would never see in a hospital back home. Like maybe the paper from the previous patient was not in the garbage, you know what I mean? Like maybe some paper that was used for whatever, a wound on another person was like just sitting on the floor somewhere. Like it was just really eye-opening, and I was shocked at the quality of the facility, at least the physical appearance. I was like, wow, you know, this is, wow. So anyway, the next day I went to have an x-ray taken in the nearby town. Well, in a town that was about 45 minutes away. I went to a private doctor so that I could get a second opinion and make sure that my toe or my foot didn't have any broken bones in it. And luckily it didn't. And that doctor was, you know, black. He was excellent, very friendly. And I had to return to the original hospital, to the government hospital that was near my school, like every other day or so for maybe a week or two, to have the wound on my foot redressed, so that it wouldn't get infected. So, you know, I went back and I just thought, wow, like everybody's so cold here. Like the nurses, like they just seem so unfriendly. And the more and more I went, like it was like the friendlier they became to me. And at the end of like my time going there, like I was really good friends. You know, we had really sort of had like a little bit of a bond. And they were really, I was like, wow, like these women are actually really awesome. So that just goes to show you, you know, the cultural differences can be very tricky, and it's so easy to get the wrong impression of someone just based on, you know, the way maybe an American is versus a Namibian, or a young American woman versus a Namibian nurse. You know, who knows what she has to deal with every day in this facility, which does not have the greatest resources in the first place. It's not, I'm sure her job is not easy, you know, like, but it's so easy to get the wrong impression of somebody just based on basic cultural background, different backgrounds and different differences. But in the end, they were actually really awesome. And one of a good friend of mine as well is a nurse at that hospital, and she's just a phenomenal woman as well. So that was my first experience with the healthcare system in Namibia at a government state hospital. My second experience with the healthcare system here in Namibia was in the capital city. I was working for a newspaper at the time here, and I was going from one event to the other. I was rushing. It wasn't even 9 o'clock in the morning, and I was getting into a taxi. And unfortunately, I missed the curb, and I stepped down pretty badly on my foot and ended up falling down between the curb and the taxi door. And when I fell, you know, crack, 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 like I just felt in my ankle. Again, I think it was my left ankle. So I couldn't walk, and, you know, I get into the taxi, and the guy's like, oh my God, you know, are you okay? So I'm like, okay, can you just take me to my office, basically? And so we get to my office, and I ask the guy, I'm like, you know, I'll give you just extra taxi fare if you could just help me out of the taxi and help me get into the building, because I couldn't walk. So he's like, oh sure, you know, whatever. And so he like picks me up and like carries me, you know, like this, like in his arms, like I'm like here, and he carries me into my office. And I know, and my colleagues were like, who the heck is that guy carrying Kaylin into the hospital in here? And like, you know, why? Like, what is going on? Like, they didn't know like I had gotten hurt, that I had fallen down. And like later on, they told me they thought that he was my like husband or something. And this guy's like at least 60 years old. And at that time, I wasn't even married. I'm like, no, that was not my husband. Like, that's just the taxi driver that was helping me get in here. So anyway, I ended up being taken to, I ended up going to the government hospital in Windhoek, in the capital city here. And it's Katotora State Hospital is the name of it. So I go there, and once again, the conditions are pretty appalling for an American. It was just unlike anything I had ever seen in the States. A very, very old facility. Just the entire vibe is just very different. The types of injuries you see, just people passing by, just wow, like it was very eye-opening. And that's the main place for so many of the country's population in the capital, so it was eye-opening. And again, the cleanliness was definitely questionable in certain corners, definitely. So I went to the foot clinic is where I had to go to in the hospital. And I remember when I was called, and like in terms of the cleanliness, someone might get offended, but this is literally just what I saw. Like I saw dried flakes of blood on the floor from somebody's, injury or something like that. And it just wasn't even cleaned up. And, like I was like, wow, like it's just, that was it, So I was called in to be seen and into this little side door. And so I like hop over from, the waiting area to the doctor's area, and I sit down in the chair, and the student doctor who was to see me, she just like starts kind of like barking at me, turn your chair this way. Do you think that I can, turn your chair this way. Do you think I can see through your back? She said something like that. It was pretty close to that. And I was just like, whoa, like, hold up, like, what, wait a minute. Like, who are you talking to me? And why are you talking to me like that? Like, where is this coming from? I was just like, wow, like, shocked. Like, I'm here hopping on one foot, and you're like barking at me? Like, what did I do? I just literally came in, sat in the chair in the position that it was in, and like you're yelling at me as if I did something wrong. Like, so I was like, okay. And there was something else that she said to me, and it was like that was the second and last straw, and I was through with her. Like, wait a second, first of all, like, you don't talk to people like that, and it's just uncalled for, and I'm not gonna sit here and act like, what's the problem? So I called her a name, and I don't even regret that. I was sitting there with a throbbing ankle, and she was just really like way out of line. I don't know what the issue was. She was, I don't think she was an official doctor. I think she was a student doctor, most likely younger than me. People always assume that I'm a lot younger than I am. I'm actually 32 years old, but I know I look, I often, like, people think I'm a teenager still. But anyway, so she was a student doctor, and I called her a name. I was really just shocked at the way she was treating me, and I didn't understand why, and I gave her like 2 strikes, and that was it. And so we got into a little back and forth. And I was like, just because this is a government hospital doesn't mean you have to treat people like dirt. And, she didn't want to hear that either. And I was just, she was black. Like, what is going on? Like, why are you? So it was definitely an eye-opening experience, because I was like, wow, like this is literally the option that a lot of people have. And this is the kind of healthcare treatment that they just have to deal with. And this is so unacceptable, you know what I mean? And because I kind of noticed the vibe with other people as well, but with this woman, for whatever reason, she decided to like really let it out on me. Well, I wasn't having it. Anyway, because we got into a little tiff, she was like, well, I'm not helping you get a wheelchair. This is how professional she is, an actual so-called medical professional. She's not like, she's like, well, you can figure out how to walk and get the x-ray yourself. So I had to hop all the way down this long hall to go get an x-ray, and then hop all the way back. Luckily, coming back, some cleaner guy, like I was just cleaning, whatever, not a doctor, not a healthcare professional, just a cleaning guy, like felt sorry for me and gave me like a piece of cardboard. He saw me hopping, gave me a piece of cardboard to help me have something to lean on as I went all the way back down the hall to see this chick. So anyway, that was my experience with that hospital, and I was just so shocked. And I didn't have to go there. I know, I have the money, I can go to a private clinic, but at that time I didn't have health insurance, so I just kind of like made the snap decision to just go along with everything, and I ended up there. And luckily, my injury was just a sprained ankle, so I decided not to, I even told this student doctor, I was like, who's your supervisor? And she's like, the Minister of Health, being like a smart aleck about it. And I was like, you know, I'm going to write about you, like, you know, in this like treatment in the newspaper because it's just unacceptable, like the way you're acting, like as a healthcare professional. And she was like, well, dude, you know, whatever, like. So anyway, at the end of the day, I did not report anything about that. I didn't write anything in the paper. I didn't report her to her supervisor. And, you know, as a foreigner, you're always like, I'm always trying to check myself and just think twice before I read into someone's behavior the wrong way. You know, you're always doing this, like when you're in another country, because there are different means of communication, different cultural norms and things like that. So I had been second guessing myself and just the entire event, you know, and my reaction and the way I handled it. But then there was a day a few months later where there is a local newspaper, and with this newspaper people can send in text messages about their opinions on different political things or different current events or different issues in their communities. You can send in a text message to the newspaper. So there is a text message in the newspaper about this exact hospital, about the foot clinic that I went to, and the person is saying, you know, dear Minister of Health, you really need to look into the foot doctor, the foot clinic, the podiatry clinic at Katatura State Hospital, because they are, you know, the way the doctors are treating the people, the patients, like they're not even, like they're nobody, like they're nothing, like they're not important. The treatment is, you know, appalling. And the facility's cleanliness is just, you know, really disturbing. This was my exact experience. And so this person, whoever sent this message to the local newspaper, I was like, wow, that's so validating. Like, so it wasn't just me, you know what I mean, that had this crazy experience there. So anyway, that was my second experience with a public hospital here in Namibia. My third experience with the system here was going to a gynecologist. I found out about a gynecologist through an African-American woman who I know here, who has lived in Namibia for either 20 or 30 years. And I asked her if she could refer a gynecologist to me for my annual exam. And so she did. And so I went to this doctor and he was amazing. It was a white guy, very state-of-the-art facility, office and equipment and, you know, things like that. He was really, really friendly. Like, it was literally the best GYN experience. Like, made me feel so comfortable. You know how it can be awkward. He really made me feel so comfortable, and I was just like, wow, this is literally the best GYN experience or visit I've had in my entire like life, like, and I've had it here in Namibia. So don't think that, you know, all the healthcare in America is like the best, because you can come to the continent and have an amazing experience with a doctor here as well. And that was a private doctor. So, you know, again, private versus public, the quality is going to vary a lot of the time. So a lot of people, I'm sure, wonder why I decided to give birth to my son in New York and not in Namibia. As you guys know, I gave birth in June of 2015. And although I live in Namibia full time, I did make the decision to deliver in New York, where I'm from. Number one, the main reason was because I found out that the town that we live in Namibia, none of the hospitals have or offer epidurals. And I was just like, no, that's not gonna happen. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not putting myself through that. Like, we're not going there, you know. So that really kind of freaked me out. And I know women here give birth all the time naturally. That is more so the norm across the continent than it is in the US. But I'm a foreigner. I am not from here. I know what makes me comfortable and what doesn't make me comfortable. And so I don't care, like, you know, what anybody says. Like, that was just my personal choice. And the other reason that I decided to give birth in the US is because as I mentioned in another video, in my life update video, when I was about 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and a bit of 5 months pregnant, I had really, really bad vomiting and nausea with the pregnancy. That was just 24/7, like all day and a lot of the nighttime. It was really bad and relentless. And so at the time, my husband also was like scheduled for a lot of traveling with his job. And I'm like, okay, I cannot be like all the way in Namibia in a town where I have like nobody almost here except him, because in the town we live in, we don't have any like family members living here. So I was like, I cannot be here like by myself, pregnant, dealing with all of this like vomiting and stuff, because it was like debilitating, like seriously, by myself in this town, like while he's traveling and pregnant also. I mean, things can happen. And in the town we live in, like, you know, 911 isn't really like a thing here. You know what I mean? Like, it's like if something's wrong, like you get in the taxi and you go, or you get in your car and you drive to the hospital. Like, so I just didn't feel comfortable being by myself. And my dad, you know, we were talking to my dad and he was like, well, what, maybe you should just come home and deliver in New York. And so that's what I did. It wasn't because of, you know, I specifically wanted my son to have an American passport. It was just my comfort with the situation. So I went back to New York when I was about 5 months along. And then and my husband went with me, and we had a, you know, a nice holiday season. And then he came back to Namibia. And then we scheduled him to come back because he had to work. He came back to New York about 2 weeks before my due date. And then I went into labor, my water broke about a week after he arrived in New York. So the timing really worked out amazingly. And, you know, these are the types of things you really have to look at, the types of things you may be faced when you're talking about being married to someone that literally is from another continent, and you live with them. When you make the decision to live overseas, these are like a lot of the choices that you end up having to make. It's not, you know, your conventional relationship where we're from the same place. It's just a lot of different decisions that you may find yourself having to make. So I was so happy that I, you know, followed my gut and delivered in the US, because I definitely ended up getting the epidural. That pain was no joke. And at the end of that all, I ended up having to have a C-section because at about 7 centimeters, I just stopped dilating for a while, and my son had, you know, what is this thing where the baby has its first bowel movement inside of you, and that can cause major complications. So I had to have a C-section at the end of all of this. And then after the C-section, like, I developed postpartum hypertension, basically, which is like really high blood pressure. So during my pregnancy, it was pretty smooth. I didn't have any issues with blood pressure until literally I was being wheeled, until the C-section itself. During the surgery, my blood pressure spiked. And so I had to be put like on a magnesium drip and stay in the hospital for an extra day. This magnesium drip is something that you get put on when your blood pressure is super high. It's to protect your brain in case the high blood pressure causes you to have a seizure, which is a possibility when your blood pressure goes really high. And so I had to be put on a drip and stay in the hospital for an extra day. I was discharged and ended up having to be readmitted again a few days later because my blood pressure went up to 181/101. And again, I had to be put on a magnesium drip. And a magnesium drip, it makes you feel absolutely terrible, like you've been hit by a truck, just miserable. So I had to be put on that for about a day. And up until today, I still have this hypertension, is what it is, postpartum hypertension. It's something very rare that happens to some women when they deliver. You know, some women have high blood pressure during pregnancy. I didn't have any blood pressure issues during pregnancy. Mine developed like when I delivered. So this happens to some women. Of course, there's not that much information out there about it, but it's some weird phenomenon. And so I still am taking blood pressure medication, and amazingly, they have the same exact medication that I was given in New York. They have it here in the small town that I live in Namibia. And so my pressure has gone down. The dosage has been decreased, but I still have to take it because if I stop taking it, it goes back up a little, you know, too high basically. So hopefully this is something that I don't know, that goes away, but I'm happy that I delivered in New York. Just with that whole situation, I feel more comfortable being in my home and where what I'm familiar with. And so I don't care what anybody says, Namibian, American, friends, family, like when you're living abroad, you have to make decisions for yourself, particularly if it has to do with your own health. And you can't listen to anybody else. And so that was what I was most comfortable doing. And that's what, really worked out for my husband and I. We came back to Namibia when my son was 8 weeks old. We flew back together. And, the rest is history. We're still here, and he is 10 months old. There was another time that I had to be admitted into the hospital here in Namibia, in the capital city. It was a private hospital, Roman Catholic hospital, because I had a bad reaction to some medication that I was given. Again, I was having this crazy vomiting. That's like a reoccurring theme in my life, and I couldn't stop vomiting. This medication just had a bad interaction with me. So I had to be admitted into the local hospital. And the way that worked, it was crazy because in order for me to be admitted into this private hospital, we had to put down about $1,000 US just to cover any potential medical fees. And it's like they would not admit me until we paid that money, which was really crazy. But they ended up being a little bit flexible. Like we said, we would be able to pay it like the next morning, which we did. But from what I understand, a lot of the times the private hospitals, you know, if you don't have like local insurance or something like that, like you've got to have a lot of money to put down to be able to be admitted into this hospital. And they don't, and I'm sitting there throwing up and they're like, where's the money? It was crazy. But at the end, on the other hand, this hospital, the experience was excellent. The nurses were fabulous. You know, it was just a fantastic experience. The food was really good. The hospital was really clean. So, you know, again, private hospitals, you tend to have a way better experience. My son's doctor in the small town that we live in is a white South African guy. He is excellent, really child-friendly. I've had nothing, you know, but positive things to say about him as well. So again, that's another private doctor. He's also a general practitioner, and the way it works here is that a lot of the times in Namibia, the doctors are general practitioners, meaning they kind of have like a general I guess, specialization in many fields of medicine, as opposed to a specific specialization like a gynecologist or a cardiologist. There are no gynecologists in the town that I live in. If I need a pap smear or if I have a gynecological issue, I go to a general practitioner here. And if there's you know, if I have a pap smear, they take my results and send them to the capital city, have them, you know, read there, and then the results are sent back to where we live, which is about 2.5 hours away. So that's sort of how it works here. If I had any major issues, or if someone has any major issues, that general practitioner will refer you to a specialist, like a cardiologist or something like that, you know, in the field. So that's sort of how the situation works in Namibia. As for healthcare options or health insurance options, you can have your own health insurance that you can pay for out of pocket. There are private healthcare plans that you can just get. And different premiums based on, you know, the amount of coverage that you want. Or just like in the US, your healthcare can be covered through your job, which is how my husband's is. And as his wife, I am covered on his health insurance here, and same thing with my son as well. He's covered on my husband's health insurance here. I've also had experiences with dentists as well. A few months ago, my bottom gums just randomly like started swelling in two spots and were really painful to chew on. And it turned out that so I went to 3 dentists here, 2 private ones and 1 like public one, just for 3, you know, what is it that they call it? Just for 3 opinions, for 3 opinions. And in the end, it turned out that they were all saying, well, 2 of them, the private ones, were saying it was my wisdom teeth, they need to come out. Unfortunately, I have all of my wisdom teeth. I have 3 wisdom teeth. All 3 of them are impacted. And so the 2 on the bottom are under my gums, and they're like sideways, bumping into my other teeth underneath my gums. And then I have a 3rd one that's up here that is like never really fully came in. And then a 4th one, I just never had a 4th wisdom tooth come in. So I was referred to a specialist in the capital city to get this surgery done, because no one really does that in the town that I live in. And, you know, I was like, you know, is this person good? And they're like, yeah, he's like the best person in the country to remove your wisdom teeth. And he specializes in jaw trauma and wisdom tooth extraction. So I have made like 3 appointments to get this done here, the surgery done here, but I chickened out and just decided that I'll wait till when I visit New York, which we're going in June, and I'm still, I don't know. But anyway, I chickened out because I was just freaked out, and also because my son was about 6 months old when I found out about this, and, you know, breastfeeding, he's very young. It was just too much. Like, I didn't see, like, I'm like, how am I going to get, like, how am I going to deal with the recovery from wisdom tooth extraction, which from what I hear is really painful, and I'm just terrified. But, you know, they gave me medication for the infection that my impacted wisdom teeth were causing. And basically, you know, I don't have any pain, but I probably, I don't know, possibly going to get them extracted when I visit home in June. And, you know, I just basically chickened out, and just the timing was not right. And since the pain went away, I, you know, let it kind of linger. And I know that's really not safe, because tooth issues can, you know, be like dormant disasters for many parts of your body, which is really terrifying, actually. But so those are my experiences with the dental, with dental hygiene and dentists in Namibia. So I hope you guys have found this video to be informative. Any of you that are living abroad or have lived abroad, or, you know, just medical experts that have worked abroad, things like that, please share your advice and your tips in the comments section below for, you know, taking care of your health and health insurance and health care abroad, especially if it's on the African continent. From what I understand, South Africa really has like the top-notch healthcare facilities on the entire continent of Africa. It's really, you know, highly revered, and so that's what I've heard. I haven't, of course, had any experiences there, but that's sort of what I have heard as well. Namibia's private private hospitals, again, really, you know, pretty good care. Definitely beautiful facilities. You know, they look just like facilities back in the U.S. The government hospitals, the public hospitals, public clinics, it's another story. You know, you're going to deal with really, you know, under-resourced, a lot of the times under-resourced facilities, you know, just a different quality of care. And so when I am in Namibia, while I'm here, I definitely try to go to private doctors and private hospitals as much as I can. And I know, unfortunately, you know, the lower standards of healthcare are a lot of the times, you know, what many Namibians, that's just what they have to deal with. So it's definitely very eye-opening, and I'm, you know, thankful that I can afford to go to the private doctors, and that's just, you know, I guess the blessing that I have. So those are my experiences. I also want to say a huge thank you just to everyone that has I get so many beautiful, like, supportive comments on various things. People calling, you know, just saying my son is really cute, you know, blessing me on my wedding, and just complimenting me on the various videos that I've shot. Just the patience that you guys have in terms of the time between me putting out videos, because as a parent, and my son is 10 months old, he is like, you know, a ball of energy, and it takes a lot of time, you know, just adjusting to parenthood, looking after, you know, a baby as well. So, you know, it's a lot that goes into my day-to-day life, and then uploading videos takes a lot of time. And most of my time filming is like either when he goes to bed, or if he's napping, or when my husband is home on the weekends and things like that. So my time is very, like, limited right now, and I know it won't be like this forever, but that's just the way it is. So I appreciate all of the patience. I just get like the most amazing comments from people that are just so supportive, and it's just really heartwarming. And I get a lot of comments, a lot of emails. Just because I don't reply to every one of them doesn't mean that they've gone unnoticed. I see them all, and I really, really, really appreciate it. And thank you so much, you know, from everyone around the world. It really makes a difference. All right, guys, I will talk to you soon. Okay, bye.